Since 2015, Jared Stillman has rocked Nashville sports.
That team freaking stinks.
And now he's back. The takes are hotter than ever.
I mean, let's be honest, he just can't coach.
Welcome to Stillman and Company.
Stillman and Company of the 440 Sports Network, presented by Hiller Plumbing, Heating, Cooling, and Electrical, here on the program, again on the YouTube channel, at Stillman & Co. Like and subscribe. Tell your friends, like and subscribe. I did take notice before we hopped on the air. I was just screwing around on my phone. I was actually looking for a song that I remember when I was a kid in Temple. And I was looking for that song on YouTube. And the Chase and Big Joe show had 9 people watching. And when we clicked in, we had like 27 people waiting. So again, thank you for telling your friends. Thank you for spreading the word. And again, to continue, please, to like and subscribe. I do want to tell you, we got a loaded show today. It's a Titans Monday. Titans did win the game yesterday, but I'm not sure how good it was that they won. I am going to tell you about Hiller Plumbing, Heating, Cooling, and Electrical, the presenting sponsor of this program. I'm going to tell you about them off the top while people file in. Here on the program, Hiller Plumbing, Heating, Cooling, and Electrical. They've been in business since 1990. They are family-owned and operated. With 100% satisfaction. If happy, you'll be here. The service is free. If a customer is not pleased with the work performed, Hiller will make it right. Learn more at happyhiller.com. Professional, experienced, trustworthy technicians who come into your home and leave it clean and better than they found it. Care is their core value, and they believe that when you care about others, everybody wins. And I know this because I use Hiller at my home. They do a fabulous job. They take care of the customer every time on every job. Proud supporters of the Nashville Predators, the Vanderbilt Commodores, and the Tennessee Volunteers. That's Hiller. Call that fish truck today. Okay, so we got that out of the way. Now, I want to start on this. And we got a lot of Shedeur and Cam talk to get into. Trust me. But that is not the number one thing up my craw today. The number one thing that is up my craw is also a reason why I love this program. I already took a shot at chasing Big Joe, but yesterday, our postgame show, Postgame Live, had 2.7 thousand views on YouTube, which is not big, you know, in the YouTube sphere or whatever. It's not like I'm Mr. Beast, and I'm not trying to be Mr. Beast, but we had 2.7 thousand views. At the same time, Titans Talkback, the official Titans postgame show, which has been around for 20 years, had 1.7 thousand views. And the reason I bring that up when it comes to Titans Talkback, I remember back in the day, I used to listen to Titans Talkback religiously when it was the late, great Mark Howard, Blaine Bishop, and Kevin Dyson. And I'm not knocking anybody who's on it now, but I have listened to it. And I'm going to tell you that I feel like the reason why we are outdrawing Titans Talkback is because Titans fans know this show, and me in particular, I'm just going to tell it like it is. You may not like it. You may disagree with it, but it is what it is. And this awfully horrendous season, I think Titan fans are tired of being told by state-run media that it's all good and everything's going to be fine. Before I even clicked into this, Sanchez on the YouTube chat said, I watched 104.5 yesterday, and it was like watching North Korean state media. They talked about the Titans maybe winning next week against the 49ers and how the Chiefs are possible to beat. Yeah, exactly. Not on this show. We tell it like it is, which is where I want to start on today's show. And I'm not saying, by the way, that nobody else tells it like it is, but I'm just saying that I tell it like it is. Or at least I tell it the way I see it. And I've always stayed true to that. So yesterday, the Titans won. And Cam Ward was average. He didn't blow the game. It wasn't like he missed every throw, but he wasn't great. Shedeur Sanders, on the other hand, was awesome. And Cleveland lost by 2 points for a bunch of reasons. Number one, the Browns made Tony Pollard look like Barry Sanders. Number two, the Titans blocked a punt for the first time since 2012. Number three, Dylan Sampson fumbled the football. And number four, Kevin Stefanski called two of the stupidest two-point conversions I have ever seen. So it's not like the Titans won for any strong reason that should give an honest man hope for next year. Again, Tony Pollard ran well with the football. Tony Pollard's not going to be on the team next year. And yet, after the game, I watched the shows. I listened to the media, and I could not believe what I was hearing from not just the state-run media, but also the local media, the lecturing. The Titans win a game that moves them down in the draft order to number 3. They win by 2 points because of a bushel of Browns mistakes. And all of a sudden, I'm told by everybody that you shouldn't be upset that they won for draft positioning. The lecturing from people who are telling you, Titans fans, do not be upset that the Titans won a meaningless game in some of the most ridiculous ways possible because this team needed a win. They needed a win for what? Or, and I heard this, if you're a real fan, you should always want the team to win. Or, the guys in that locker room don't care about getting the first overall pick. And the lecturing came from everybody. It came from Buck, who'd said, if you're upset about the draft, eat shit. Buck, this team stinks. It came from PK, who says he never believes you should root for your team to lose. It came from Titans Radio, talking about how it's more important that these guys learn how to win than it is that they draft at the top of the pecking order. And I am here to tell every single person who is spouting that message that yesterday was a good thing for the Titans, that winning a meaningless game because of the ineptitude of the Cleveland Browns, in which your quarterback did not play very well, I'm here to tell you they're wrong. And I'm here to tell everybody spouting that message, respectfully, shut the fuck up. That win yesterday could be absolutely catastrophic for the Tennessee Titans. And when I hear things like guys in that locker room don't care about the number one pick, question, why do I care what guys in the locker room think? Why do I care what guys in the locker room feel? Do the guys in the locker room care how I feel? 80% of this team will not be Tennessee Titans when they open up that new stadium in 2027. But I'll be paying thousands and thousands of dollars to watch them. Do you think Chigakonkwo cares about that? So if Chigakonkwo doesn't care about me, why do I care about Chigakonkwo? And here's why the loss is such a big deal. Because the Titans need draft capital. They said it before last year's draft. They need picks. This roster is so bad. You know it. I know it. They've said it. We all know it. And they don't have a bunch of extra picks. And the reason they don't have a bunch of extra picks is because they just had to draft Cam Ward. So now they go through this monstrosity of a season. They've fired the coach. They're going to have to rebuild the roster. They didn't do a very good job of rebuilding the roster last offseason. Hate to say it. And they're going to need picks to do it. And you know as well as I do, how do you get draft picks? You know the answer. Trade the number one pick. That's how you get draft choices. And right now, all the intel says Dante Moore is going back to Oregon. Ty Simpson has completely fallen off, which means right now there is one guy in the 2026 NFL draft who projects as a top of the draft quarterback, and that is Fernando Mendoza at Indiana. And Fernando Mendoza did enough on Saturday that he is going number one overall, barring a catastrophic injury. Again, you guys kept telling me last year, Cam Ward's a winner. But Cam Ward didn't even make the ACC title game at Miami, a traditional power. Fernando Mendoza won the Big Ten at Indiana, a traditional doormat. He is going number one overall. Trevor Sikkema has a mock draft out today at Pro Football Focus. He's their lead draft analyst. He has Mendoza going number one overall to the LA Rams, who are using the Falcons pick and their own pick to move up in the draft to get to number one to take Mendoza to sit behind Matthew Stafford. Because the Giants right now have the number 1 pick, and they're going to trade it. If the Giants get the number 1 pick in the draft, they're trading it. They get all the picks, not you. You lose. If the Raiders, who now, according to The Athletic, have a 44% chance and are the favorites to land the number 1 overall pick in the 2026 draft, if the Raiders get it, they are drafting Fernando Mendoza. And again, you lose. And there are so many teams that could be in the Fernando Mendoza market that it will drive the price up. The Browns, the Raiders, the Jets, the Cardinals, the Dolphins. You could get a huge haul and this massive bidding war going. And if a team that doesn't have their picks, like Atlanta, wants to get involved, now you're going to get a bunch of young players in the deal. Look at all the picks the Browns got from the Travis Hunter trade. And look at all the picks the Jets have from the Sauce Gardner and Quinnen Williams trades. If you had the number 1 pick in the draft, you could get your hands on those picks. But you have to have the pick for Mendoza. So yesterday, again, after the game, Buck and PK and Taylor Zarzour, they said, it's more than just a draft pick. You want to win. And the reality of that is it sounds nice, but it's not true. And I'll explain. Because I think we've been through this plenty of times as Titan fans. This season has been over. Whether or not you were a Sunshine Pumper or a Brian Callahan Pee Wee program believer, this season has been over for everybody since Indianapolis came into Nissan Stadium on week 3 and won 41-20. The first week, Callahan was stupid and it was close against the Broncos. And the second week, the Rams were really good, but Cam had the nice touchdown pass. The third week, you got absolutely housed. Cam threw a pick 6 at the beginning of the game. Indianapolis with Daniel Jones at quarterback ran you out of your own building. Over. So from that moment on, 2 years in a row, by week 3, you've been ready to say, time to move on. But I'm supposed to care about the joy that the locker room felt from winning yesterday? When I've had misery, and you Titan fans out there, you've had misery for the last 3 months? For the last 3 years? And the joy in that locker room that they felt from winning yesterday, I'm just here to tell you, because we've all been through this, it will have no tangible effect on the team next season. 0. Remember the win on Monday Night Football at Miami for Will Levis? I remember thinking, hey, this is a big moment. This is a moment where Will Levis showed us he can do what a franchise quarterback has to do in order to become a franchise quarterback. On the road, down 14 points, Monday Night Football, Will Levis leads them back. And I thought that was important. And I thought at the time that was more important than draft position. But that win in 2023 had no tangible effect on the 2024 Titans. But you know what it did have an effect on? The difference between Joe Alt and J.C. Latham. You know what did matter? Because again, we're told about, hey, winning matters and you shouldn't worry about draft capital. And 2015. The last game of the season, the Tennessee Titans on the road at Indianapolis. Indianapolis had signed Josh Freeman. Remember that guy? They had signed Josh Freeman off the street that week. The Titans played Zach Mettenberger. The Titans got their butts kicked in Indianapolis, and it gave them the number 1 pick. So the 2015 Titans lost and lost and lost and lost. That was a young team. Mariota, Lewan, Bishop Sankey. It was a young team. They could have used a winning. That could have helped, right? But it didn't matter. They lost all those games. And they got the number 1 pick. And because they got the number 1 pick, the 2016 Titans were able to trade for Jack Conklin, Derrick Henry, Austin Johnson, Corey Davis, and Jonnu Smith. So let me ask you, what do you think's more important? The guys in the locker room feeling good about themselves after a win? Or again, Jack Conklin, Derrick Henry, Austin Johnson, Corey Davis, and Jonnu Smith? How many games between 2017 and 2022 did Jack Conklin, Derrick Henry, Austin Johnson, Corey Davis, and Jonnu Smith win for you? So yes, draft position matters. And I'm sorry, but considering that the last 2 years we've been able to call the season by week 3, I care more about the 2026 and 2027 Titans than I care about the 2025 Titans. Because again, let me ask this question. Do the 2025 Titans care about you? What are they playing for? What does a win yesterday? What does that do for you? If you are committed to the Titans right now, if you're like me and you love this team and you're going to love this team no matter what, I mean, let's just call it how it is. We are committed to this shitty franchise. If you're riding with the Titans now, you're going to ride with them forever. You know that, and I know that. And we all want what's best for the Titans. We all want the Titans to eventually win. So, no thank you. No lectures. Draft status matters. Period. And if anybody tells you otherwise, ask them, how do you rebuild the team that is going to need a starting center, a starting right guard, a starting tight end, 2 starting receivers, a starting running back, 3 starting corners, a starting edge rusher, and maybe a starting inside backer? How are you going to rebuild the team if you're picking 4th? And you know the answer to that. You're not. So I don't want to hear this Taylor Zarzour from anybody else. I don't want to hear this idea that, oh, no, this is good. In fact, here was Taylor Zarzour. I was going to save this for later in the show. Fuck it, let's play it now. This was Taylor Zarzour on Titans radio yesterday after they won the game. Take a listen.
A lot of times when you have a team that has a situation like this, you start going at each other.
Finger pointing.
Yep. There's been none of that. This is a team that desperately wanted to win and wanted to win for each other. And I want to make this clear to all Titans fans because I really believe it. I know you're thinking about drafts and which teams are winning and which teams are losing and how the Titans can get the best pick available, and I get all of that. The most important thing for the 2026, 2027, and beyond Tennessee Titans is winning games in 2025. You want all these young players to achieve their best? Winning helps them do that. All the development that Coach Mack talks about all year is important, but the most important part is learning how to win. This day is a valuable day for the future of the Titans.
This was a valuable day for the future of the Titans. Yeah, so was it not valuable in 2015 when they went to Indy and lost? I'd say that was a valuable day because, again, that netted them Derrick Henry along with Jack Conklin and Corey Davis and Jonnu Smith. And when you went to the AFC Championship game, in large part, it was because of Derrick Henry and Corey Davis and Jonnu Smith. And even Jack Conklin. One person says the Browns got great draft capital at 1-2 last year from Jacksonville. Yes. And right now you're picking 3rd. And there's at best 2 quarterbacks in the draft. So that's the first thing. When it comes to the, no, you should be rooting for them to win, Jared. Come on now. Give me a break. So that's first thing. Second thing, Shedeur versus Cam. And boy, yesterday was funny because Shedeur Sanders absolutely outplayed Cam Ward. And by every metric, Shedeur Sanders outplayed Cam Ward. And the PFF grades are out. If you're somebody that cares about that, if not, I'm sorry, but it is what it is. Not only did Shedeur Sanders throw for 250 yards more than Cam Ward, not only did Shedeur Sanders account for 2 more touchdowns than Cam Ward did, but Shedeur Sanders, according to PFF, had a much better day than Cam Ward did. Because, according to the grades, Shedeur Sanders had a PFF grade of 76.2 and a passing grade of 72.5. Cam Ward had a grade of 53 and a passing grade of 51.7. So, again, grading on the scale of 0 to 100, Shedeur Sanders was 20 points better, according to PFF, than Cam Ward was. Shedeur also had 3 big-time throws. Make sure I get that right. 3 big-time throws to Cam's 1. A big-time throw percentage of 7 to Cam's 3.4. So double the amount of big-time throws. And Cam had 1 turnover-worthy play to Shedeur's 2. The adjusted target, how far they were throwing, Shedeur was throwing passes 9.2 yards on average down the field. Cam was throwing them 5.6. Guys, Shedeur Sanders absolutely outperformed Cam Ward yesterday. And look, you can make whatever excuse you want, but by every metric, Shedeur Sanders yesterday was better than Cam Ward. And by the metric that I love to use, which is common sense, that's not good. And I'm going to tell you why that's not good. It's not good because you have fully invested in Cam. They are not in Cleveland fully invested in Shedeur Sanders. This entire plan that the Titans have hatched about how to get better, remember the draft, develop, retain, the entire plan, when you're getting down to the specific level, hinges on Cam Ward being successful. If Cam Ward is a bust, and you know this as well as I do as far as the NFL is concerned, unless they get lucky with a Brock Purdy, or unless they build a team around Cam that you can then take Cam out of and drop in Ryan Tannehill, in case they do that, everybody's fired. The next coach will be hired for Cam. The roster will be developed for Cam. And if Cam Ward doesn't work out, they'll lose this year. They'll lose next year. They'll give it one more go, and then everybody will be fired, and you'll be starting all over again. It's like the Bears. They tried it with Trubisky. It didn't work. They tried it with Fields. It didn't work. Now they're trying it with Caleb, and it looks like it's going to work with Caleb. But who knows? But yesterday, I put up a poll, and I said, after seeing them play, who's better between Cam and Shedeur? And as of right now, there's 1 hour left to vote on Twitter at Jared Stillman. After seeing them play, yesterday the results were 51% Cam Ward. And I thought, you people are crazy. Did you guys watch the game? After seeing them play, you people have Cam Ward at 63% of the vote. Shedeur Sanders at 37% of the vote. How could you people watch that game? And after you watch that game, you sit there and say, you know, I think Ward's better than Sanders. Again, going into this entire process, the draft, I watched their tape because, again, this draft, and I know Jackson Dart ended up being the 2nd quarterback taken, and Shedeur ended up being like the 9th quarterback taken after Jalen Milroe. But again, being honest here, this draft was the Cam Ward versus Shedeur Sanders draft. And I do think that when it comes to Cam versus Shedeur, I do think that it was a lot of the Dion stuff and the cockiness and the attitude and everything else that had Shedeur completely fall out of the first round, or especially fall out of the first 2 nights of the draft. But again, forget about everything about what you thought of them when they got drafted, because I thought Cam Ward was better than Shedeur when it came to the draft process too. But I'm just, again, being honest here that once you get drafted into the NFL, it's kind of, at that point, moot about what you did in college or where your draft status was. To me, it's all about what are you doing at the NFL level. And yesterday they played each other on the same field. And on the same field, Shedeur Sanders threw for 250 more yards. He accounted for 2 more touchdowns. He had a PFF grade that was 20 points higher than Cam's. He had a passer rating that was almost 30 points higher than Cam. And yet, again, you people, when I put this poll up there, 60% of you think that Cam Ward is better than Shedeur Sanders? Based off of what? You watched him play. Shedeur was throwing the ball down the field. Cam had one guy wide open down the field and completely missed him. And I saw old buddy Tic Tac Titan today was like, man, he had the game film up on Twitter and he said, oh man, if he had hit this throw to DK, right, if. But the problem with Cam is that he doesn't hit those throws because he's not an accurate quarterback. Let me tell you, I watched the Big Ten Championship game. Fernando Mendoza hits that throw to Chimray DK. I watched Shedeur Sanders yesterday. I think Shedeur Sanders hits that throw to Chimray DK. Cam did not. It's a horrible miss. That's the number 1 overall pick versus the 144th overall pick. And yet, again, 63% of you think that Cam is better than Shedeur. And I do not get it. But I do know what that takes us to, which today it's not just going to be one. Because last night on social media after the game, there was a lot of Cam Ward excuse making, and here were the best ones.
The Cam Ward excuse of the day.
Cam Ward excuse number 1. Cam played a much better defense than Shedeur Sanders played. Cam played the number 2 defense in the NFL. And Shedeur Sanders, he didn't play a very good defense. Yeah? How many sacks did Myles Garrett have yesterday? 1. So you're going to tell me they played this great defense? I'm sorry, I've seen the Ravens with Ray Lewis. That Browns defense wasn't that way. In fact, the coaches you guys hate so much, Mike McCoy and Bo Hardigree, devised an excellent game plan to neutralize Myles Garrett. So, again, you're telling me that the Browns have this great defense. But if the Browns have this great defense, then why did Tony Pollard turn into Derrick Henry yesterday? Was it that great Browns defense with Jim Schwartz, they were just so hell-bent on stopping the great Cam Ward that they just let Tony Pollard run all up and down the field? So that defense is so good, Cam Ward couldn't really do anything against it, but Tony Pollard could do whatever he wanted to. Guy was like Emmitt Smith and O.J. Simpson if they had a baby out there yesterday. Well, that was the number 2 defense. Okay. Nice excuse. Excuse number 2.
The Cam Ward excuse of the day.
Number 2, Shedeur Sanders has a much better supporting cast than Cam Ward. A lot of people were saying that yesterday. Saying, oh no, Jared, they have a much better supporting cast. That is not fair. Stop. Jerry Jeudy is better than any receiver the Titans have. I agree. But Jerry Jeudy is not Julio Jones, even though I thought when Jerry Jeudy was coming out of Alabama that Jerry Jeudy was going to be Julio Jones. And that Harold Fannin for the Browns, he is awesome. Which again, apparently you chose not to draft him. Be nice to have him on the Titans. But let's talk about supporting cast for a second. Do you know who's on the Cleveland offensive line? The Cleveland offensive line is terrible. Absolutely terrible. Your offensive line features a $50 million left tackle, the number 11 pick at guard, a backup center, a $9 million right guard, and the 7th overall pick at right tackle. The Browns do not. Also, the supporting cast yesterday, Tony Pollard gave you 161 yards. Tajay Spears added in another 19. The Titans had 184 yards on the ground. I'd say that helps out the quarterback. You want to know who the leading rusher for the Cleveland Browns was yesterday? That would be Shedeur Sanders. 3 carries, 29 yards, including a 14-yard touchdown. So, again, Shedeur was the leading passer, and he was also the leading rusher. Whereas Cam was helped out with his supporting cast with 184 yards on the ground. Also, one of the pivotal moments in the game, the supporting cast, Dylan Sampson fumbles the ball, Titans pick it up and score. Who fumbled the ball on Cam Ward's supporting cast? Nobody. The only one that turned the ball over yesterday for the Titans was Cam. So I know, oh, he has a much better supporting cast. Chigga made a one-handed catch, the ball thrown behind him. That's helping Cam out, folks. Cam Ward, excuse number 3.
The Cam Ward excuse of the day.
Cam Ward didn't need to throw the ball as much as Shedeur Sanders threw the ball. The Titans were winning. The Titans were running the ball. So Cam Ward didn't need to throw it as much as Shedeur Sanders, which is somewhat fair. If the only thing we were looking at was passing yards, but it's not. Again, Cam had 2 touchdowns, 1 turnover. Shedeur had 4 touchdowns and 1 turnover. The quarterback rating is not based on how many times you throw. It is not like a credit score. It is based on your efficiency. It says Shedeur was 30 points better. PFF, again, not based on the amount of times you throw. PFF says Shedeur was 20 points better than Cam yesterday. Again, Cam completed 14 of 28 passes. If that's good, if right now the number 1 pick, you're just like, hey, please complete 14 passes for 117. And then as a football team, we're going to develop because of Tony Pollard. You got bigger problems. That's excuse number 3. And then finally, my favorite excuse. Because again, people will say, like, if you say something that they don't like, they'll say, did you watch a game? Did you actually watch the game? And if you watch the game, there's no way you'd be making this excuse.
The Cam Ward excuse of the day.
The Cam Ward excuse of the day that I love the most. Cam doesn't have the coaching that Shedeur Sanders has. Okay, stop right there. Again, on the surface, I would agree with you. Mike McCoy, the narrative, the reputation, Mike McCoy is a substitute teacher and Bo Hardegree is a bum. I agree, with that overall thesis. And Kevin Stefanski in Cleveland is a 2-time NFL Coach of the Year. But did you watch the game yesterday? The Tennessee Titans held Myles Garrett to 1 sack yesterday. The greatest sacker maybe in the history of the NFL right now in his prime, held to 1 sack against an offensive line which featured Dan Moore at left tackle, along with Brandon Crenshaw Dixon and Oli Udoh. 1 sack. That's coaching. That is a game plan. I told the story from 2015 last week when the Titans played J.J. Watt and the Texans in Ken Wisenhunt's last game. And Floyd said, if J.J. goes up there and wrecks the game, somebody ought to be fired. Because you can take one guy away. Now, you're not going to be able to take everybody else away, but you can take one guy away. And the Titans took one guy away. And that was because of coaching. That first drive for a touchdown, that was excellent coaching from Bo Hardegree. Calls the screen right at Myles Garrett on 3rd down so that Tajay Spears gets out in space and can run with the ball. The coaching, the touchdown pass to Io Manor, he was wide fucking open. That's coaching. And then Stefanski. I mean, this fucking moron. Again, I don't keep up with the Browns every day, but I mean, I understand the idea down by 14, go for 2. I get it. Vrabel did that at Miami, and it works. The idea is it's 50-50 if you go for 2, so you're likely to get one of the 2 tries that you have. And so if you're down by 14, you score the touchdown, you go for 2, and then it gives you a chance to win the game in the end or tie the game in the end where you need to go for 2. Fine. Philosophically, I get that. The play calls? What? Taking the ball out of the best player on your team that day, taking it out of his hands? What? And not only that, I do think, I'm not a conspiracy theorist that thinks that Kevin Stefanski's out there sabotaging Shedeur Sanders, but I feel like there's enough evidence. Stefanski doesn't like Sanders. And I know he reluctantly today had to announce him as the starter for the rest of the year. But I think deep down inside, the NFL is rampant with what I call my guy syndrome, a.k.a. MGS. And I am convinced that Stefanski, like Dylan Gabriel, And so the way I was pounding the table for Sam Darnold, maybe Stefanski was pounding the table for Dylan Gabriel. And then on day 3 of the draft, Shedeur was just sitting out there. And finally, Jimmy Haslam said, take him. I mean, we had this guy rated XYZ. He's sitting there in the 5th. Take him. And I always thought that Shedeur was better than Dylan Gabriel anyway. But they take Shedeur, and Dylan Gabriel doesn't do anything, but Dylan Gabriel has the backup job. And then they trade Joe Flacco, and Dylan Gabriel gets the starting job, and they do whatever it takes not to play Shedeur Sanders. And then Dylan Gabriel gets hurt, so they have to play Shedeur Sanders. And all of a sudden, it's like, well, I guess we got to stay with Shedeur because Shedeur Sanders actually wins some football games for us, whereas Dylan Gabriel didn't do anything. And that sounds like a guy who is reluctantly playing the other guy because the evidence is so overwhelming that he cannot, with a straight face, look at that fan base or look at the owner or look at the locker room and say, we're going to go back to Dylan Gabriel. But in his heart, I think he wants to go back to Dylan Gabriel. Again, you can't take Shedeur Sanders. After what they did yesterday, you cannot take Shedeur Sanders out of the lineup. Like, you cannot take him out of the lineup if you don't want that locker room to completely revolt. Could you imagine going up to Myles Garrett and saying, hey, we're going to start Dylan Gabriel because, well, just trust me, bro. It'd be one thing if you said, just trust me, and we had never seen them play. We've seen them play. Shedeur's better. They don't really have a choice. So that is, again, you can make all the excuses you want. Shedeur outplayed Cam, and for some reason, 63% of you do not want to admit it. I don't know why. I know why. You don't want to admit it because you got your hopes up for Cam, because you thought 0-star recruit, and now he's the number 1 pick, and he shows up at 5 a.m., and the coaches love him, and the general manager compares him to Mahomes. I know it's the fairy tale. I get it. But this is why we watch the games. We watch the games because we don't know what's going to happen. Everybody thought Ohio State was going to win on Saturday. They didn't win. That's why we watch. Going into the year, Mike Renner at CBS put out a mock draft. He had Fernando Mendoza going number 1 overall. And I said, who the fuck is Fernando Mendoza? The Indiana quarterback who's a transfer from Cal? Last year, Indiana got to the playoff with some guy named Curtis Rourke as their quarterback, and that guy's never going to play in the NFL. Who is this Mendoza? Had no idea. I wrote it off. I'm like, the Indiana quarterback. He's going number 1 overall. Why? Because we watch the games. And in the games, he plays very, very well. That's why. But for some reason, 63% of you just choose to absolutely ignore that game yesterday. I'm telling you, Myles Garrett would not ignore it. If they came out today and said, well, Dylan Gabriel's recovered from his concussion, so he's going to start next week, Myles Garrett would go into Kevin Stefanski's office and sack him. So, again, you guys keep making your excuses. But that does take me to Kevin Stefanski, because I think we need to have a discussion surrounding Kevin Stefanski. You know, when it comes to who you want the Titans to hire as their next coach, there's a lot of names that get thrown around. And all the names right now, for the most part, that are getting thrown around are the names that are available, whether it's Mike McCarthy, who doesn't have a job, or coordinators like Matt Nagy, Arthur Smith, Robert Saleh, whomever. And then there are the coaches who might get fired. And I think there's a really good chance that if I had a choice of the next head coach of the Tennessee Titans, I think there's a very good chance that one of those guys could be a coach who might get fired. Now, I have no interest in Zach Taylor, and I have no interest in Raheem Morris, and I have very little interest in Brian Daboll. But Stefanski has been a name that I think a lot of people have circled. And I think, again, this comes back to the narrative. The same narrative that says that Mike Vrabel's the greatest coach ever is the narrative that says Kevin Stefanski's a 2-time coach of the year in Cleveland and has done more with less because the owner, who can't stop butting in, sold the farm for Deshaun Watson. It's almost like in Cleveland, Stefanski, who's won a playoff game and made the playoffs with Joe Flacco, Stefanski has done more with less because of the Watson trade, didn't have the picks, handcuffed at quarterback. What are you going to do? But how could you watch the game yesterday and not think that Stefanski is anything short of incompetent? I watched the game yesterday, and I'm sitting there watching Kevin Stefanski get down to the 2-yard line and then take Shedeur Sanders out of the game to run the Wildcat. They got down there after Judkins, and I think Judkins ran out of bounds. They got down there, and it was immediately Wildcat, run the ball, 3rd down, touchdown, Shedeur Sanders. It's like it pained Stefanski to call a play to put the ball in Shedeur's hands. And I don't even know if I have to get into the 2-point conversion at the end of the game where they took Shedeur Sanders, who was on fire, off the field to run this gimmicky, gadgety play that did nothing. So I said, I don't buy the conspiracy theory that Stefanski is actively sabotaging Sanders, but it's hard to ignore the way he's treated that kid after that 2-point conversion yesterday, again, when he took Shedeur off the field. And no disrespect to Dylan Gabriel. I mean, zero disrespect to Dylan Gabriel with this. Dylan Gabriel was never better than Shedeur Sanders. And yet, was it Kevin Stefanski's ego that put Dylan Gabriel ahead of Shedeur Sanders? Was it Kevin Stefanski's ego that took practice reps? And I'm talking about during training camp, meaningful practice reps, meaningful game reps away from Shedeur Sanders so that they could give him to Dylan Gabriel. I mean, if that guy has his head so far up his ass, I don't want him anywhere near my football team. So, again, going into this, I didn't know Stefanski. I mean, I knew of Stefanski the same way I know of a lot of these other coaching candidates. I don't know Robert Saleh. I know of Robert Saleh. I knew of Stefanski before yesterday. I watched Stefanski coach, and there's no way I can think this guy is anything but a moron. I'm sorry. And again, the actively sabotaging Shedeur Sanders stuff, that might be a little too much for me. But I tweeted this out watching the game, and I said, Kevin Stefanski is either trying to tank and lose on purpose, or he's trying to get fired. Because some of his decision-making yesterday was so bad that I don't think a high school coach would have made those same mistakes. And I know it's one game, and we all have our bad moments. But I don't know if I was the owner of the Tennessee Titans and I was considering Kevin Stefanski, and I heard PK on his show yesterday say that the sentiment he got talking to Browns reporters, and he probably was talking to one of two people, either Mary Kay Cabot or Tony Grossi, and both of those guys are very in the know, and gals are very in the know. PK said he hears Stefanski getting fired at the end of the year. So Stefanski's going to be out there. But the truth is, how could you want him after watching the game yesterday? I mean, I just did a search today on YouTube just to see what everybody was saying, and I put Shedeur Sanders in there because Shedeur Sanders can't take a poop without ESPN just going wall-to-wall about it. And so I put it in there just to see what everyone was saying. And almost every YouTube video was, Kevin Stefanski should be fired. And after actually watching the game, I don't disagree with that. And so now that guy, who, again, incompetently lost Cleveland the game yesterday, and it does seem like he's got something personal with Shedeur. I don't know what it is, but it feels personal. And I think personal drama and bullshit should be beneath the coach. I don't want that guy anywhere near my football team. Nowhere near my football team. So I have to ask all you people out there, was yesterday enough to just say, take Stefanski off the coaching list? That when it comes time to pick a coach, and we're talking about Matt Nagy and Mike McCarthy and Arthur Smith And all these coaches, we don't even know are going to get let go yet around the NFL. There's going to be a shocker. I don't know who it's going to be. But when we start talking about all these guys, Stefanski, if he gets let go, and it sounds like he is, are we ready to take him off the list? Because, I mean, good God, that was bad yesterday. And again, I just want to be abundantly clear here. I do not believe that an NFL head coach would actively sabotage a player on their own roster. I understand egos are rampant in the NFL. But at the end of the day, these guys are paid to win. And if you don't win, you get fired. And if you do win, you make millions and millions of dollars and everybody loves you. So it may not be fun. You may not like the guy who's winning with you or winning for you. But at the end of the day, winning is what matters. Bill Belichick didn't like Tom Brady. Trust me, he was fine with him being his quarterback. So I don't buy the idea that Kevin Stefanski is sabotaging Shedeur Sanders just based off of pure absurdity. But it's hard not to watch the game. And it's hard not to watch the way Stefanski has treated Sanders since they drafted him. You know, with the lack of enthusiasm at the pick, the way that they buried him on the depth chart, the way that they've never really given Shedeur credit, the way that he took him off the field for the 2-point conversion. It's hard to watch that and not think that Kevin Stefanski has something personal that is bothering him about Shedeur Sanders. That it's almost like if Shedeur wins, Stefanski loses, which makes no sense to me because the reality is if Shedeur wins, then doesn't Stefanski win? Shedeur Sanders is better than Dillon Gabriel. Anybody with a set of eyes knows that. And yet Stefanski was insistent on playing Dillon Gabriel ahead of Shedeur Sanders. Why? If they had played Shedeur Sanders and Shedeur Sanders had gone out there and played the way he played yesterday earlier in the season with their defense, is it not crazy to think that Cleveland could actually have a semi-competitive team? I mean, after all, the Dolphins are 6-7. Why would Stefanski do that? And so it's one of three things. Either Stefanski is trying to get fired, which I don't know why you would do that. He's actively tanking, or he's stupid. It's one of those three things. You tell me which one it is. One person in the chat says, yes, no interest in Stefanski. That final 2-point conversion play was moronic. I agree. What were they doing with that 2-point conversion? You take the ball. I mean, look, I'll just tell you right now, the way it comes with 2-point conversions, we get too caught up in the math with 2-point conversions, saying, oh, well, the percentage of times that you convert a 2-point conversion, you do this, whatever. What play are you running? How confident are you in the play that you spent this week saying, if we got to have a 2-point conversion, this is the play we're going to run? Because you practice it and you rep it and you've seen it. You know it. You know who's getting the ball. You know who's supposed to be where. You know who did what they were supposed to do in practice. You know who screwed up in practice. So you know what play you're going to. That was the play they chose? What did it look like in practice? And then there has to be something that's said about the idea of, well, Shedeur Sanders is on fire right now. He cannot be stopped. He's running in touchdowns. He's throwing touchdowns. Harold Fannin cannot be stopped. Let's dial up a play for them. It's like running a fake. The old man, longtime special teams coach, he told me, he said, when it comes to running a fake, there are two things that are important. The timing of the fake, you want the other team to not think you're going to fake it. And two, the second most important thing, who's doing the faking? So the Browns are down by 8. They have to go for 2. So now who's doing the going for 2? The rookie tailback taking a direct snap in the Wildcat. Not the quarterback who's thrown for 364 yards. Not the tight end who cannot be covered. Morons. I mean, that was embarrassing. And I know this is not Cleveland talk, but holy shit. So I'm with you guys. I am ready to watch yesterday and say, take Stefanski off the list. That's what I'm saying. Couple of things I want to get to, and then we get to your reaction here on the program. Number one, and I think, this wouldn't kill me, and I don't know how much of a game changer this would be. Number one, tough news in Indianapolis. They go all in. They push their chips in on the Sauce Gardner trade, which I thought was a stupid trade because I don't think any corner in the NFL in 2025 is worth 2 first-round picks. But they pushed all their chips in the middle, and I say, I wouldn't push all my chips in the middle on Daniel Jones, but they're pushing all their chips in the middle on Daniel Jones. And Daniel Jones, unfortunately, yesterday tore his Achilles. Excuse me. Daniel Jones yesterday tore his Achilles. That is a tough blow for the Indianapolis Colts. They right now are on the outside looking into the playoffs, and they've got a tough go of it, a tough schedule. But it's not over. And they've already pushed their chips into the middle with the Sauce Gardner trade. If you're Indianapolis, don't you have to pick up the phone and call Ryan Tannehill? The trade deadline is passed. So if you were going to go out and get a Kirk Cousins, you can't. Because, again, you can't trade for him. So then the question is, well, who's out there? And in 2025, the way it works is everybody has their starting quarterback. Everybody has their backup quarterback on their roster. And then anybody else who has a pulse that can throw the football is on somebody's practice squad. Now, you can pull somebody off of somebody else's practice squad, and they can come in right away onto your 53. And they have Brett Rippon, who is on their practice squad, who in theory could be the backup quarterback. But Riley Leonard from Notre Dame is the backup quarterback in Indianapolis. Sorry, that's not good enough. Now, Joe Flacco may be an option because Joe Flacco put out last week that he may be getting sent home. But trust me, if Joe Flacco were to be waived, you would see every team that has a shot at making it to the playoffs claiming Joe Flacco because they wouldn't want Indianapolis to get him. So it has to be somebody who is actually a free agent. And it has to be somebody who can actually play quarterback. By my count, there's one guy out there who can do it. Ryan Tannehill. Ryan Tannehill has maintained that he probably doesn't expect to go back to the NFL, but he stayed in shape just in case. And I kept saying, when Ryan Tannehill last year in 2024 had really no interest in being a backup, it made sense to me. Ryan Tannehill has made close to $300 million in his life. You think he wants to wake up at 5 a.m. to go to the facility, to sit with a young quarterback and tell Caleb Williams what he needs to do, and stand there on Sundays in the cold with a giant coat on? Or do you think he'd rather hang out here in Nashville with his family, or on his boat in Miami, or at his beautiful estate out there? That makes sense. But the truth is, a guy like Tannehill, and we know him well, is a competitor, which means that if the opportunity arose for Ryan Tannehill to have a shot to get back in the NFL, to get the ball in his hands, have a chance at the playoffs, have a chance in a wide open AFC, I think Ryan Tannehill would be interested. A couple years ago in the NFC title game, you may remember, Brock Purdy got hurt, and so did Josh Johnson, the backup. And so Brock Purdy couldn't throw the ball, and he was going to have surgery on his elbow. He was not going to be able to play in the Super Bowl. And even though they got blown out in that NFC title game, Kyle Shanahan was asked after the fact about what would you have done if you had won with Brock Purdy out? And he said, I would have signed Phillip Rivers, and I would have said, how long is it going to take you to be ready to play? And we'd have spent 2 weeks trying to get Phillip Rivers ready to play in the Super Bowl. That was 2023. Phillip Rivers had not played since 2020. But that makes sense to me. So when it comes to Ryan Tannehill, I don't think that this is the end-all, be-all for Indy. I don't think signing Ryan Tannehill guarantees they're going to make the playoffs. I don't think signing Ryan Tannehill means they're going to win the Super Bowl. But I think it gives them a chance that Riley Leonard does not. So somebody needs to explain to me why Ryan Tannehill would not go to the Indianapolis Colts, or why the Indianapolis Colts should not call Ryan Tannehill. And after all, Colts fans got mad when I went on an Indianapolis-themed podcast and I made this statement. Their team is the 2019-2020 Titans, with Michael Pittman and Tyler Warren and Jonathan Taylor as Derrick Henry, A.J. Brown, and Corey Davis. And Daniel Jones was always playing the role of Ryan Tannehill. So I think the best they can do right now is to go sign Ryan Tannehill. I don't think it'll happen, but I think it should. And my final NFL thought of the day, Kansas City is dead, folks. The one game I felt great about this week when it came to making picks, the one game I felt great about was I felt great about Houston at Kansas City. Because Kansas City stinks. I'll just say it. They stink. The offense stinks. The defense does not get big stops when they need it. That team stinks. Mahomes does not stink. But their entire offense right now, outside of Mahomes and their center, Creed Humphrey, is trash. Their wide receivers all suck. Rice and Worthy and Hollywood Brown. And for every one catch they do make, they screw up 2 or 3. Travis Kelce, he needs to retire because he is not the same Travis Kelce anymore. And you could see the disappointment on Mahomes' face when Kelce dropped that pass yesterday. Kansas City is done. They are not making the playoffs. And this offseason, they are going to have to completely rebuild that team around Patrick Mahomes. They're going to have to do what Belichick did around Tom Brady when the Tony Bruschi, Troy Brown, Deion Branch, Mike Vrabel, Richard Seymour, when that era ended, and it was time for the next wave with Gronk and Edelman and Amendola. That's what Kansas City's going to have to do. I don't know if they're going to be able to do it. Okay, let's get to some of your reaction today on the program. A lot of people want to weigh in on 104.5. One person says 104.5 is not a sane person's place. I don't know about all that. Another person says, even when this team wins, they still take the L. 104.5 is Titanic propaganda, respectfully. Let me say this. I'm not going to come out here and crush 104.5. I got no beef with 104.5. I like Buck. You know, I think I've made that very clear. I like Buck. And I really like Blaine Bishop. I think Blaine Bishop's a very good radio host. I think Blaine Bishop's a very good guy. And I think Blaine Bishop was a great Titan. But when it comes to like sports talk radio, engaging sports talk radio, I'm just trying to be nice here. I don't know how you can listen to the mornings on 104.5 or the afternoons on 104.5 and think you're getting that. I mean, I don't see that. To me, there's almost zero insight. Ramon Foster is always pumping everybody's tires. Will Bowling is a backup quarterback trying to be a starting quarterback. And 3HL just talks about whatever. And like when 3HL used to talk about whatever, when Clay Travis was on there, I thought that show was incredibly entertaining before Clay went all into politics. I thought they talked sports, but Clay was just kind of all over the place. And I thought it was a great show. Now I feel like they try to trade on what 3HL used to be, you know, back in the Clay Travis days. That was 10 years ago. So I don't have any place for that. That's just me. That's just my take. I'll just throw that out there. The distinguished gentleman says, us who played sports, we want to win. I don't care about that. The way I look at it is I think about it like this. Analytically speaking, we've been through this before now. We have life experience. Did the Miami win in 2023 tangibly help the 2024 Titans? The answer is no. It actually tangibly hurt the 2024 Titans because it cost you Joe Alt or Malik Neighbors, or both. So that win, while it was a good win, you weren't going to make the playoffs, but it was a good win. It was a good come-from-behind win. It gave you faith in Levis. Didn't actually mean anything. Did getting the number 1 pick in 2015 matter? Yeah, it did. It got you Jack Conklin, Derrick Henry, Austin Johnson, Corey Davis, and Jonnu Smith. Danny says, I was of the mindset they need the number 1 pick, but right now I'm not confident Mike Borgonzi will make the right decision. I agree with you. I think that the decision to draft Cam Ward and the way the Titans have done this leaves me with a lot of questions surrounding the decision-making of the team, specifically Borgonzi, because Borgonzi has put his flag down and basically said, I'm the one who made that decision. So I absolutely think that that's part of the mix, but you have to try. For years, people have said, it's not like the Titans are any good at drafting, so why not just trade all the picks? Because you have to try. You have to draft. You have to try to develop quarterbacks. You have to try to build your roster. You have to try. You can't just say, well, we can't draft. So, again, that would be like a Major League Baseball team saying, well, our bullpen's no good, so if we get to the 7th inning and the starter's out of gas, we'll just quit. Can't do that. I mean, I agree with you. I don't trust Borgonzi either, but give me a break. Justin says, I think you're being way too hard and critical of 104.5. They are the flagship station of the team. And the fact is, a lot of people want to hear silver linings and light at the end of the tunnel. I really do wonder, because I've told people, I've said when it comes to the whole sunshine pumping thing, I do think that if I was more of an active sunshine pumper, I do think that more people, I think more people, more Titan fans would listen. I don't know. Maybe I'm wrong. I don't know. But I can't do that. I'm just not wired that way. I'm just not dishonest from the standpoint of I'm going to tell you that it's a great thing that Cam Ward stinks every week. But a lot of people love doing that. And 104.5, when I was a kid, 104.5, or maybe I was just totally blind to it, but I did not feel like 104.5 always took the Titans side. I grew up in the Pac-Man era of 104.5. So I remember Frank Wycheck and Pac-Man getting into it. But I never looked at Mark Howard and thought he's in the bag. Again, did you think that Kaharski, when he was on there, was in the bag for the team? Or Clay Travis was going to be told what to say about the Titans? I never thought that. And now it does feel like a lot of buddy-buddy stuff. It does feel like a lot of, if you criticize Amy, you're getting a phone call. And so they don't do that. Same with the Vols. Just all positive all the time. And look, maybe people want that. I don't. But I guess I'm different. I don't know. One person says, I think Taylor Zarzour is full of crap. I had somebody in the media text me yesterday. And again, I don't know Taylor Zarzour from a jar of Vicks. So if he thinks this is personal, again, all I did was I heard you sit there and talk about how winning yesterday is the most important thing for the culture of the team and more important than draft picks in the lecture. And I just know better than that. And again, if we're being intellectually honest, I would assume that he probably knows that too. But when it comes to Taylor Zarzour, I had somebody in the media yesterday text me. And they said, this new radio guy is mid. And I said in response, I go, I think he blows. And the person in the media said back, I was just trying to be nice. I think he kind of sucks. And I think what this was the corporate mentality of the new Tennessee Titans, the Burke Nihill Tennessee Titans, where Jim Nantz and Eric Church made a phone call. And it's like, Jim Nantz and Eric Church on line one. And they said to hire Taylor Zarzour. And so they did. And I don't think Taylor Zarzour's probably done a lot of football radio. Maybe I'm wrong about that. I think he's done a lot of football TV. But there's a reason why he usually does the 9th best SEC game every week. It's not like they hired Tom Hart or Chris Fowler to call the Titans games. So, again, and hopefully this could be motivation for him to get better. But he does kind of stink. For whatever that's worth. I love this. Alex says, Jared, Shedeur Sanders played better than Cam because literally every position around him is better than what Cam has. With that, I would say that reminds me of the
Cam Ward excuse of the day.
Okay, let's be intellectually honest here for a second. Because you're telling me that every single position is better than what the Titans have. The Cleveland Browns right guard is Tevin Jenkins. And Tevin Jenkins, is he better than Kevin Zeitler? I don't think he is. The left tackle is Luke Whippler. Is Luke Whippler better than Dan Moore, who makes $50 million? The left guard is Joel Bitonio. Now, he is good. Ethan Posick is the center. He got hurt yesterday. And whoever the hell KT Levinston is the right guard. But I know this. I know KT Levinston wasn't the 7th overall pick. In fact, KT Levinston in the same draft went in the 7th round. That's all better than Shedeur. How about running backs? Jerome Ford. Better than Tony Pollard? Because Tony Pollard ran for 160 yards yesterday. I don't think so. Shedeur was the leading rusher for the Cleveland Browns. You guys just say things because you know the name Jerry Jeudy. So you're like, these guys are so much better. But I really don't think that the Cleveland Browns offense and the offensive personnel they have, I don't necessarily think that's much better. Because if it was better with the defense they have, they would have won games with Joe Flacco. And they didn't. Kelsey says, hard to follow Mike Keith, but I cannot listen to Taylor Zarzour. I don't think Coach Mack likes him either. But I tell you, I'm not here to shit on Taylor Zarzour, even though I've done some of that today and I've done some of that over this season, because I just think he's bad. But it does feel like a forced marriage with him and Coach Mack. Again, I'd like to say I know a lot about radio, and I'll tell you, it does not feel like there's a lot of chemistry between those two. That's just me. Boy, I tell you, a lot of people want to talk about a lot of people out there want to talk about 104.5. There was one thing I did hear yesterday. I should have cut this to get on PK's case, just to make fun of him. So yesterday on PK's show, he was ranting about how Ran Carthon's a total idiot when he was talking about the great lost love of his life, Mike Vrabel. And he was talking about Ran Carthon's a total idiot, which I don't have any disagreement with. I think Ran Carthon was totally incompetent. And I think that absolutely it was a total screw up to hire Ran Carthon, and an even worse screw up after you had been around him for a year to promote him. But man, PK was just calling him an idiot and talking about how stupid he was and how it ruined Vrabel and all these things. And I thought, Paul, where was that when Ran was the GM? Because I got to be honest, I felt like I was on an island by myself, ripping Ran Carthon's ass. Paul was trying to argue that Floyd Reese at the end was as bad as Ran Carthon when Ran Carthon was the general manager of the Titans. And I promise you, Paul said a lot of things. He would never call Floyd Reese an idiot. So I'm trying to figure out how we went from, well, it's not that bad, to he's an idiot. And that's the one thing I want to know when it comes to PK. Sanchez says he went hard on Ran. I mean, the difference is between me and I went hard on Ran when Ran was the GM. Everybody else waited until Ran got fired. And I don't necessarily do that. Oh, and he went up against a harder defense. I think that gives us one more.
The Cam Ward excuse of the day.
One final thing to get off my chest. I don't totally understand this. It's like the Veterans Era Committee or something like that. Major League Baseball, there's a bunch of different ways they vote for the Hall of Fame. If you've been out for 5 years, it's the writers that vote. But then if you've been out for X amount of years after that, it's the Players Era Committee or whatever it's called that decides if you get in the Hall of Fame. That's how Fred McGriff got in the Hall of Fame. That's how I believe Harold Baines got into the Hall of Fame. And so yesterday, that committee decided to put Jeff Kent, the former San Francisco Giants second baseman. He also played for the Mets. He also played for Cleveland. He also played for the Astros. I think at one point he played for the Dodgers. They decided to put Jeff Kent into the Baseball Hall of Fame. And I feel like I do this every year when it comes to the Baseball Hall of Fame, where every year there's somebody that gets put in the Hall of Fame that I think, really? That guy? And this year, that's Jeff Kent. Because Jeff Kent was a good player. He's a very good player. He was an all-star second baseman. He won an MVP because 1 year in San Francisco, nobody wanted to pitch to Barry Bonds, and so they pitched to Jeff Kent with Barry Bonds and everybody else on base. Kent won an MVP. Great. Hall of Fame? Jeff Kent? Terry Pendleton won an MVP. I'm not saying we should put him in the Hall of Fame. Again, when I think Hall of Fame and I think of that era of baseball, I don't think of Jeff Kent or David Eckstein or Edgar Renteria or Craig Counsell. I think of Derek Jeter and Alex Rodriguez and Roberto Alomar. And I can't be the only person who does this. And yet every year we put somebody in the Baseball Hall of Fame that I look at, I'm like, what business does Scott Rowland have being in the Baseball Hall of Fame? The way I view the Hall of Fame is if everybody sitting there can say him, then they belong in the Hall of Fame. Jeff Kent? Really? Well, congratulations to Jeff Kent. Let's just hope that before he gets inducted into Cooperstown, he lets somebody else wash his truck. That's going to do it for us. We are out of here on the program. Great show today. Like and subscribe wherever you get your podcast. Stillman and Company, 440 Sports. See you tomorrow live at 2 o'clock.